will start the show with the news that a substantial bid has been made. Now that the deadline to bid for the Manchester United takeover has passed, that bid coming from Qatari sheikh Jassim bin Hamad Al Thani. Mark Ogden is going to join us now, as will Stewart Robson as well, to tell us a little more about this. Mark, tell us the latest news on the bid that's been made.
Well, as you say, the so-called soft deadline for bids to be lodged was 5 p.m. Eastern time in New York. So that's passed now, and the one bid that has been made public is that by Sheikh Jassim. Now it's backed by the Qatar Investment Bank, Islamic Bank, and it's obviously it's a substantial offer. It's one that suggests it will take 100% control of Man United, reinvest in the stadium, the training ground, the community, all the teams that United have under their umbrella. But the question is, will it be the successful bid? Now, there will be other bids that we are not aware of. Jim Ratcliffe, Britain's richest man, chairman of INEOS, he's also confirmed that he'd made a bid quite a few weeks ago. But are there other bids? We don't know. There was suggestion of Saudi Arabia interest, American private equity fund interest. Now, what will happen is that if the Qatari bid is successful and it becomes the preferred bidder, then there'll be plenty of obstacles to clear, such as how will they satisfy the Premier League, that this isn't a state-backed operation like there was concerns about Saudi Arabia and Newcastle. They overcame those fears. And if they do get past that hurdle, they'll have to persuade UEFA that there isn't a connection between PSG, who are owned by the Qatari Sports Investment Fund, and this bid that, again, is linked to, Qatari's supreme wealth. So what are the connections? Will it pass the tests? We don't know. But there's still quite a long way to go before this gets the clearance to actually take the club over.
With this news coming out, Mark, how do people back in the UK and the fans feel about it?
It's quite mixed, to be honest, Kay. I think there's a lot of Man United fans who are just delighted by the prospect of the club being one of the richest in the world again, that the Glazers will be gone. But also there's quite a lot of opposition amongst United fans that the club could be taken over by, a state-backed operation. So they've seen what's happened at Man City, a lot of success there. They've seen the Newcastle situation. But there is obviously question marks over a club as big as Man United being owned by a state. Now, this bid doesn't suggest it's owned by or it's backed by Qatar, the state itself, but it's Qatar's Islamic Bank. It's connected to the ruling regime. So there is a sense that Manchester United don't want to be owned by a state. They want fan ownership, but that isn't going to happen. Fan ownership, it's not feasible for a club that is as big and as expensive as Man United. There are issues as well about Qatar. We know this about human rights and the way that the country had lots of criticism around the World Cup. So that won't go away. We've already had groups condemning this as potential more sports washing. So if the Qatari bid is successful, it won't go through quietly. There'll be a lot of noise around it.
And I'm presuming, Augie, that the Glazers, presuming they could get this through, don't give a stuff about it, just want to get the most money?
That's what it all boils down to, isn't it? It's all about the money. I don't think the Glazers are looking for the new prospective buyers that will be the best for Man United. I'm sure it'll be whatever is the best for the Glazers. But there is a bit of confusion as well as to the motivation of the Glazers. Now, I've been told that Joe Glazer would like to retain an interest in United, would like to attract an investor, a partner, but the other Glazer siblings want out. So I don't think Joe Glazer staying with a partner would be backed by the fans. I think the Glazer name has become toxic, so I don't think that would work. But there is this kind of split as to whether the Glazers sell lock, stock and barrel, or they sell a portion of the club. They sell a certain stake to allow one of them or two of them to remain, with a controlling stake. So I'd imagine if the Qataris are bidding to buy the whole club, then other groups will as well make that same offer. So I don't think by the end of this process the Glazers will be there. But until the process is followed through, we don't know. We don't know the size of the Qatari bid. That Sheikh Jassim is reportedly worth £1.3 billion. Now, that isn't enough to buy Man United. He's the son of an ex-Prime Minister. Obviously, he's well connected. He's the chairman of Qatar's biggest bank. So, let's be honest, there'll be money there. The question mark is it a personal purchase or is it a purchase that's backed by the state? And if that is the case, then there will be connections to PSG which have to be dealt with. And the way that UEFA regulations stand right now, that isn't allowed. Although we've seen with Red Bull Leipzig and Red Bull Salzburg, there are loopholes, and clubs are always good at finding loopholes. So that's what I mean by there's a lot of obstacles to clearing this. The Glazers have to find their money out of it. The new prospective owners have to clear all the regulations in place. It will take a long time from this point on. Tonight isn't the kind of the green lights for a sale to happen. It's just one step in the process of a longer process, which might not be done till the summer.
When you look at Manchester United as well, Robbo, they're doing so well right now. We just saw they're still alive in all the competitions they're playing in. Will this offer any sort of distraction to the team on the pitch?
I don't think so. I mean, a new ownership doesn't really mean too much to the players. If the new ownership was saying they were going to bring in a new management team, then players would be worried because they're doing so well at the moment. They trust the manager. They're playing some good football. They're getting better and better. But the players shouldn't be worried by this. It's at top level. The players just get on and play. As long as it's all right on the training ground, as long as it's all right with the fans, they'll be happy. And I think they'll carry on playing well for the next few weeks.
How much do you care who owns a football club, Craig?
Do you know, as a real...
As a player. I'd say it as a player then. You're a player in the team.
Yeah, because from where I'm sitting now, I read things about sports washing and state-owned things, and I'll be quite frank with you. It's not my bag. I really don't understand how the logistics of a lot of these things happen, and, you know, it is super complex. But from a player's perspective, it's about getting paid, it's about playing well, it's about improving your team. I don't think from a player perspective there's any real interest in about who's buying it. It's just, is this going to improve things for us?
You know, when somebody signs you, you ask them questions about the club. You don't ask them who the owner is, do you? I mean, as long as the cheque's getting put in the bank, as long as your team's doing well, as long as you like your manager, those are all the things you think about. You don't think about who the owner is. Listen, it's great. You know, my day at Liverpool, it was the Moors were the owners, and everybody knew them, and it was great, and it was a great situation. But the fact is, it makes no difference to the players. The only time they'll be bothered is if the cheque doesn't come through when it's supposed to.
If it is to go through then, Mark, one of these bids, how will the Glazers be remembered at Manchester United?
I don't think they'll be remembered very fondly. I think right from day one, I mean, even before day one, the fans wanted to drive them out. They didn't like the way they bought the club. They bought the club and plunged it into over, £500 million worth of debt straight away. They borrowed against the club. So right from that point, they haven't invested their own money into the club. The club, I've seen Man United over 20 years, and I've seen how the team has declined, but I've also seen the stadium has declined and the infrastructure, and to the point where the roof is leaking at Old Trafford. So the Glazers have taken money out year after year after year. They haven't put any money in, and you can see it now. I mean, obviously the team is coming back, he's bouncing, but the stadium isn't. The stadium does need, rebuilding, regenerating. So I think the fans will look back in the Glazer era as an era when the club fell behind their rivals and allowed the likes of Man City to grow. I think the Glazers had Sir Alex Ferguson for the first 4, 5, 6 years, and that kept them competitive. But once Sir Alex Ferguson left, they really went into a nosedive. And there've probably been 2 lost decades under the Glazers, even though they won the Champions League in that point. I think from the point they saw Cristiano Ronaldo in 2009 to Real Madrid, that was the point when it went on a slippery slope. And I think they are still trying to get out of it now. But if they are sold to a Qatari ownership with the wealth they have, I think it's a scary prospect. I think it's bad for football that the biggest club, arguably the biggest club in the world, becomes the richest club in the world. And I just think it's a bad sign for the likes of Liverpool, for the likes of Tottenham, Arsenal, who, aren't owned by these wealthy funds, the likes of Bayern Munich, Barcelona, Real Madrid, that won't be able to compete. So I think this will signal a massive change in football in Europe, in England, because clubs that are used to success will not allow clubs like Man United to be owned by these funds and to allow it just to carry on, because they will see a future where they win nothing, and it's a scary prospect.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app, and for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN+.